Beato is wrong, but mostly right. Let's break it down. Okay, so in this most recent video, Rick Beato says it's the death of music genres. That's the title of his video. We're going to break it down. We're going to go and walk through it. I took some notes, and that's what we're going to do. So here, Mr. Beato, he starts by talking about Bossa Nova, a Bossa Nova song. His daughter is in the car. She goes, okay, hey, Mr. Dad, can you put the song on that was popular on TikTok a year ago? And he's like, yes. And he's like, oh, it's a Bossa Nova with a chick singing over it. He's like, okay, like, I know what a Bossa Nova is. Do you know what a Bossa Nova is? She's like, no, I don't know what a Bossa Nova is. Shut up. And no, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. She didn't say that. Or I don't know. Actually, I wasn't there. Maybe she did. Maybe Rick didn't tell us. Anyways, but he brings up this idea that, like, you used to have genre back in the day, and this is his introduction to the idea of genre, is that because albums were, thought of in 3-month cycles of press and promotion and all these sorts of things, that when you looked at the old way music got out and you consumed music, it was through these highly filtered institutions that all had aligned financial incentives to kind of push one style of music at the same time and one style of music, because if they got something popular, then they could just have a bunch of artists ride the same wave, and it makes for good marketing. Look at Oasis and Blur in the 90s with Britpop. Oasis and Blur don't particularly sound that similar in the same way that other genres, like I would say Nirvana and Alice in Chains and Soundgarden and I'm forgetting the other, Pearl Jam, those all kind of do fit together more than Oasis and Blur did. But it was easy to market them because you could have a storyline of Oasis versus Blur. You could talk about Pulp. You could talk about these other bands that were there at the same time by lumping them in one group, one movement, one genre, even if sonically they didn't have a lot together. Maybe thematically and culturally they could, and the relevance in the society. So likewise, this is the idea of manufactured genre, or at least largely co-opted genre by these big institutions that, Rick kind of goes with. And I like that, and I agree with that. And Rick, I love you. I love you, buddy. See, I love you. But I think this is where you're the boomer and I'm the zoomer. And so I think I might be a little bit older than your kids, and I may have seen just a little bit more than them, which is different stuff, which gives me some different context. I think what was talking about before is this idea of an omniculture, right? That it's not just, it's omnipresent, and it's a monoculture. Like if you take every breath you take by Sting and the Police, everyone knows the song. No one doesn't know the song. Everyone knows it, right? But nowadays, you can have a hit. Most people don't know it. If you ask 50% of people that are like, in the U.S. population that aren't super old, that aren't toddlers, but like, what we're talking about, referring to, like people shaping and being a part of culture. If you ask 100% of them or whatever, 50% or more aren't going to know the song. Like if you talk about like a newer Taylor Swift song in the last like 6 years, I probably can't name any of them. I've probably never heard any of them. Rick Beato talks about Blinding Lights. I've never heard Blinding Lights, or I don't recall hearing it. I couldn't sing you the melody. Prince, he made a video about Mr. Beast and Prince, and I was like, yeah, I know a couple Prince songs, but I've only listened to Prince in like the last year or two. And that's because I got an oversized Prince t-shirt at Walmart to be my pump cover, so you can't see how buff I am and jacked and how much my hypertrophy work is being productive. Either way, this idea of omniculture, monoculture is not here today. It was there in the past. And so the next idea he talks about is eras having, so basically an era, the 80s, the 90s would have a couple of these defined, highly compartmentalized kind of genres, right? And so you could think of the 90s, you'd be like, okay, there was grunge, there was nu metal, rap went from being, I was down at the hip hop doing the hip hop, which it was in the 80s. It started being NWA, so you'd have gangster rap. Things got a little more thugged out, G's up. It got a little bit more like that. And so that's the 90s. You can think the 70s, you had classic rock come up. You could say like heavy metal with like Black Sabbath and stuff. Ironically, not the heaviest of metals, but I personally think the best kind of metal, the early Sabbath stuff. And Witchfinder General, you will see in the back there. That's a really good album. You should go to witchfindergeneral.net. I wonder who owns it. Me. Anyways, they influenced Metallica. But the whole idea is these were all, and that, is also largely the progenitor of a genre called doom metal and things like that. And so people later, after the fact, kind of make the name of genre based off of some sort of shared visual, thematic, or sonic trends. It could be fashion. It could be the way I'm dressing. I'm wearing an ascot. Oh my God. I'm like Prince, except straight. Anyways, debatable. When's the last definable era? Rick says it's 2000s pop, the boy bands, early 2000s, late 90s pop. I'm Connor O'Farrell, host of The Rock Show with Connor O'Farrell, Gen Z. Oh, bring it back, rock. We're bringing it back. You know we're bringing it back. Come on, party people. Anyways, what are we talking about? Come on, come on. I'm not Italian. Anyways, I go in rock. What's the last definable era? I go like the White Stripes, the Strokes, Arctic Monkeys, Franz Ferdinand, the Killers, Cage Elephant, kind of the tail end, but like the same kind of time period, the 2000s, right as the bubble, streaming kind of came right around the early 2000s and started killing the record sales. The record industry used to make a lot of money because you would sell hundreds of, thousands or millions of records, and it would cost you like 4 cents once the record is made, right? Which now you can make a record for like $4 on your computer that sounds the same as, good records from the 80s or decent records. And so it's like the cost of making the music itself, it's a one-time fee you throw in. But then every single record, you're like, okay, we sell it for $10. It cost us like probably $1 to make. That's $9 of profit times hundreds of thousands and millions of records yearly. Look at Kiss, like record every year, and stuff like that. And so when you get a big machine like that, you're like, oh, millions per year, not including touring, not including merchandise, not including anything that, makes the primary income bulk of income for people these days. And so when you're looking at all that, you're like, okay, well, like, if streaming came and it killed rock, or it didn't kill rock, but it killed the label system, which largely had been the only thing propping up rock, because rock's a genre where you actually need to kind of like have some like execution and distribution. Rock is like pro wrestling. If you take a pro wrestler, you take a guy screaming, you take John Cena, you take The Rock, and you take them out of that setting, you take Hulk Hogan out of that setting, you take Cody Rhodes, today, or whoever. You take whoever's a larger-than-life character. You take Superman. You take Batman. You take anyone. You throw them. You take Iron Man. You throw them out of the setting of the ring or the story. It just doesn't work. It's not compelling. No one cares. People are going to cringe. They're going to go, it's weird. I don't know. That's the way with rock. If I don't dress up like this on the internet and have a big persona, it's kind of like, what are you doing? Like, are you like afraid that people are going to see you and all this stuff, and like, why? So like dress normal, but then like if you see a band on stage like dress normal and you see all of them in jeans, you're just kind of like, part of rock is it's big and then it's got this whole thing, and so it kind of does take institutional knowledge and a team and a whole media apparatus. A lot of it is cultural rather than the actual music itself, because you can write really good rock songs, but if the lyrics and the album artwork and the message and the cultural context in which it's being delivered is non-existent or lackluster, like showing up to every gig in jeans, right? The reason showing up to every gig in jeans and a flannel worked in the 90s is because everyone for the 80s had been singing upbeat stuff, even when they didn't feel like it, and they were dressed super big and crazy. But then the 90s came along, they're like, oh, let's actually be real, and, sometimes I do feel angry, and sometimes I do scream and all this stuff, right? And so I dress in the flannel, I show up how I am rather than as a big character. But I think in general, rock's the big character. I think that's what it is, right? The legend of Led Zeppelin, the legend of these things. Oh my God, the band was tearing up the place. Did you see that? They're tearing up the place. And so like rock's got a big thing. And so that's why I think, at least in a large part, that rock has kind of suffered since then. I think it's coming back because of podcasting. I kind of got off the topic of the video, but the whole point is I think rock's going to come back because of podcasting. We're allowed to be media people like I am right now. I have a podcast and I'm making a YouTube video. This is what the comedians started doing. And now comedy, which went from a genre that kind of died because the TV stations, back in the day, you'd get signed to a record label in music, right? And then the labels had so much money that then they would help do all the marketing and do all the stuff and help, make it be a thing, have a cultural context. They'll help build it out so there's a context in which the art can be enjoyed and actually does the thing you want. Likewise, in comedy, you'd have sitcoms. Every comedian was trying to get a sitcom. But then around the 2010s, everyone's like, wait a minute, we can't have these comedians on because what if they say things that get us in trouble with advertisers or the audience boycotts us? So let's just not do sitcoms, right? And so then the comedians are like, what if we do this whole podcast thing? And now there's a boom in comedy. It's not a boom, it's a growth period. You would say like, oh, there's a boom in electricity production when I don't know, like electricity got invented or energy boomed when electricity got invented, but it's not like implying that there's a bust that's going to happen. It's like, no, we invented a new technology. It's just going to keep going up. Like that's the only direction it goes. And so let's just keep moving on with the Rick's points. So Rick says, what was the turning point? And he says, oh, that's my thesis for why the labels and the whole thing has kind of gone down, though, is because the money isn't there. And so instead of building up this whole cultural context, they can just see what's already existing, what things kind of sprout out of the soil of TikTok and the, cultural fabric that's there, and just pluck the things and like pour super water on them and throw, steroids on them, and they just like the Hulk, and their head pops and they turn to Britney Spears. No, but anyways, Rick says the turning point is that the decentralized hyper silo. He basically says, wait, what does he say? No. Oh, so he's saying the turning point, basically, I'm writing all this down, I'm a genius. Anyways, he's saying that the turning point came because of streaming, because then everything gets personalized, it's an algorithm, it's all these things, but the decline happened way before algorithms and personalized, listening happened. People were still largely going off of word of mouth, or I might see something on social media. So it's still cultural. And like record labels, if they wanted to, even though people weren't buying records at a record store, you could totally manipulate everything and influence it. Like people talk about like, manipulating social media to like push certain narratives and like, oh, like what if, like they say like, you see this all the time though, right? But it's just like people want to influence people in ways that are beneficial to them. Like they say like, okay, Jeff Bezos owns a newspaper. He's probably going to like write things in ways that make Amazon, the company, look better than a newspaper that hates Amazon and it owns the competitor to Amazon. They would have a newspaper that would say bad things exclusively about Amazon. And if you owned Amazon, you'd write, your newspaper would probably just say good things about Amazon, right? So likewise, people in all areas want to exert influence over that. And here's the point. You still could. Because if it's social media, instead of going into the record stores and Best Buy and buying the, $10 CD, I have a couple CDs. I bought Melophobia on my 11th birthday, and I was very, very sad when I got out of the Best Buy and I put it into my aunt's stereo system. She bought it for me. And I was like, oh no, this like hard rock, like punk band that was like super cool, Cage the Elephant, on their first two records, like turned soft. And that really broke my heart. But it's a really good record, by the way. I really do like it. But it just kind of signaled to me that like, oh, this era of rock, this 2000s thing that I thought was like going to go on forever and I was so excited about and was growing up on and was like really loving. It was like, yes, this is what the world needs. It started going away. Arctic Monkeys got soft. White Stripes got soft and or esoteric. The Killers always were kind of soft. But just everything kind of like started to fizzle and fade. And I go, whoa, what's going on? But the whole point is, even if I wasn't going to that store and most people weren't going to that store for every record, like I only bought like, these are like the 1 or 2 records I bought for real. You know what I mean? Physically. The rest of it was on the internet or like on the radio. And even then, those can be manipulated. So that's my point, is that it wasn't that like, oh, the record stopped selling and people stopped going to them and then the labels couldn't influence people. It's like, no. The labels could still totally influence and dictate what music people were listening to and kind of like what things people wanted to listen to. That didn't change at all. What happened is the money was gone. So there was no reason to influence, because in the past, if I like mass propagandized you and I knew I'd make like $300 million a year from spending million to propagandize people to like certain records and to build, not even propagandize, but like I would do $1 million to lay down this culture. Of course, the culture is going to be beneficial to me. But I'm going to seed this culture and like foster it and, do this kind of, you could say, psychological operation, right? But really it's just cultural, it's stories, it's narratives, yada, yada, yada. I'm going to create this cultural fabric, which you want to play in. I'm going to create this fantasy world, this fun world of, the Undertaker comes out, he slams a guy, and you don't think there's actually a guy named the Undertaker who like lives in a coffin in a graveyard, who drives the gravedigger, and you know what I mean? Like you don't think Ronald McDonald's a real clown who works at the Friar. But the idea is they created this culture and they know, okay, I can make 300 million a year in profit from spending a million on building out this culture and all these things. And that's because the 300 million came from like record sales and stuff like that, physical sales. But then once things became digital and therefore you could just download everything, um, you know, that's where the money went. And so now there's no reason to spend money on propagandizing the culture. So things kind of can just go off on their own way, right? I think like there used to be fertilizer and like gardeners tending to this area and things were growing and it was vibrant and lots of flowers. And then just kind of like there's no nutrients in the soil. The dirt's kind of drying up. The climate got worse, right? Like that's what happened with rock. Um, and I think with like pop and a lot of other stuff, just like it just doesn't sound as good or compelling. And there's no incentive to kind of show people and make hyper palatable, even like then, like hyper palatable things, because just the return on the money isn't so high. Anyways, the real thing you get into is eventually, once you get to the internet age and you do get to this culture, what starts developing is decentralized, hyper siloed realities, really hyper siloed cultures. And basically, this other concept too, that fame is now non fungible. It no longer means that, if someone's famous, oh, more than half of the people in the culture know them or have heard of them. It's like, no, I just found out about this guy, Jake Shane, who's like huge. I just found out about him because I watched Colin and Samir because I like doing internet content. Ooh. And so Colin and Samir have a podcast, and I watched it because this guy Jake Shane was on, and they're like his success story, bridging traditional media with like internet culture. And I was like, he is? Who is this guy? And the guy's hysterical. And so like, okay, that was great, but I didn't know him like at all. Like I could relate to the people who were like, I don't know who Mr. Beast is either. I don't know Prince. I also don't even know Mr. Beast. So fame is no longer fungible. That doesn't mean fame is dead though. Here's the crux of the point. Fame isn't dead. Fame just doesn't mean the same things. It used to mean that if you're famous, then that also meant guaranteed everyone knows you or most people know you. It still means you are famous in all the traditional sense, but the extra conditions that were implicit are no longer implicit. So some of those things that you just assumed had to be true because someone's famous aren't there, but it still doesn't mean those people aren't famous and people don't get famous. People still get famous and the way people react to them and behave with them, but now it's in specific groups of people react to them and specific groups of people. And so if you look at this whole thing, it just comes down to the idea, we get back to genre. He goes, genres, genre. Okay, let's just I'm gonna keep going. I'm gonna keep going because I have the whole point is at the end. I'm gonna say genre is alive and well. It's not dead, but I'm gonna tell you how I get there because I want to walk through the rest of Rick's points. He goes, we are in a post-genre world. That's what he coins, and he says now things are often mixed genres. The boundaries are blurring. Rap and country, jazz and R&B, electronic and rock. Here's the thing. Genre has no utility now. That is the thesis. Everything's now mood-based, he says this, or influencer-based, even though he doesn't like the word, which I understand. And Rick, I would love to talk to you or just, watch this. Rick, I like you. I mean, or from what I've seen of your videos, you get what I mean. Anyways, but you go, the genre has no utility now, right? This is the thesis of it. Maybe that's not exactly his words, but the idea of a genre, like, no one, what's it going to do for you? You don't need a genre. It doesn't help anyone. It's all like, what's the mood? What's the vibe? Which is true, but I think those things have been added or just are more prevalent. I don't think it means genre isn't a factor, isn't a thing that still exists, right? People still say, I listen to all music except for country because it still is a useful way of shorthand to saying these are my preferences and this is typically what I like and what culture I like to engage with and what music and art and yada, yada, yada. But so here's the whole thing. Look at it. Rap, country, jazz, R&B, electronic rock. These are just new genres. Boom, 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 air horn, new genres. They're still genres. Guess what? What happened in the 90s? Well, we combined punk and we combined metal with some of the independent stuff. Oh, it's grunge. Oh, wouldn't you say grunge is a genre? What happens when you blur the boundaries, often mixing genres? It's called a new genre if it works and people kind of keep doing it. It's a new genre. What? New genre unlocked? Oh my God. And so, what happened when we combined rap and metal in the 90s? New metal. Oh my God, new genre, new genre, new genre. You wouldn't say genre's dead. We're post genre because now people are mixing rap and metal and punk and metal. It's like in the 60s or the 70s, you go, nope, genre's dead. People are mixing blues and country, and they've got this thing called rock. Yeah, there's the Stones, the Beatles. They're mixing pop and blues and country. So just genres are dead. Pop, blues, country, they just don't make sense anymore. Or just no one's even using that as a way to refer to stuff because, like, I don't know, like someone mixed them and like a lot of people are mixing them. And now it's like it doesn't even make sense. Okay, example band, Master Boot Record. Electronic plus rock. Electronic plus rock. They call it computer metal. They're called Master Boot Record. I saw them. They're from Italy. They're great. There's lots of bands like that, right? There's lots of bands using electronic solo and just rock or just rock. But some people are also mixing them, and there's also a lot of them too. It just becomes a new thing. You can call it computer metal, you call it whatever you want. It becomes a new thing. You don't get rid of genres, and people don't stop. They actually look for new words to, refer to the old things that's, there and the new thing that's a combination. Influencer-driven curation. Rick didn't really elaborate on this, but I don't think I see a lot of influencers then bridging into talking about music and having strong opinions and advocating on behalf of artists. You do see a little bit of this. I would say Bert Kreischer did this. He had the band Goose on. He had the Red Clay Strays. He had a couple other newer bands. But really, I would like to see influencers driving curation, but it doesn't really seem to have a lot. Now, this is a big question. Are we between eras, or is this the new normal? Yes, not one or the either, but yes. Simultaneously, different genres are concurrently in their primes and in between and in flux. This is all happening at the same time. Certain genres, it's all happening on different racetracks, right? They're all like kind of horses with their like barriers in between them. They don't see each other. Some of them are moving fast forward. Some of them are like turning around and jumping out and but they're all concurrently going. They're just you're not looking at all of them at the same time anymore. That's all that's happening. So unless you go out and look and like, people say like there's gay Twitter and straight Twitter, right? There's male Instagram and female Instagram. And like generally if you open your explore page or whatever, after like following a couple people, they either go like, you're probably a guy, or you're probably straight, or you're probably gay, or you're probably a woman, or whatever, right? And then they go like, okay, we're going to predict some things about you. And then the culture that you're exposed to because of those things that either self-reinforces or just because of external forces, probably a combination of both, those things, those attributes, those then color the reality you see. And so you're only seeing in your lane. You are that horse. You got that dog in you? No, you have that horse in you. You are the horse. Become horse. Nay, 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 nay. You are the horse. That's what I was trying to tell you all along. So here's the thing. Are we between eras, or is this the new normal? Yes. Everything is in an era and between eras, which is the new normal. This is the concept. Because of the internet, because of these things, because of everything that's going on, because of these self-reinforcing things, we now have a new 20th century condition, new 20th century paradigm. We have an top-down, regulated, manicured, cultural scene when it comes to the music landscape. It's no longer being, kind of held together and kind of pruned and then pouring some water on. It's growing. Like no one's like top-down managing all of music anymore. No one's spending millions of dollars in the same way, at least. So what you've got, though, is you've got friction arising when people are trying to apply these 20th century memes and strategies. And I mean meme in like the literal sense. Like a meme is just a repeated idea that spreads from person to person. Now, we typically think of memes particularly as referring to funny jokes on the internet you share. But the idea of a concept or an idea or a way of looking at things or framework, right? Like, so some people say like, I guess you could say, I don't know. Example of meme, but you could say like traditional like American household, like man and woman married, and then two kids, one boy, one girl, right? Like that, it's like an exact ratio. That's not a meme. That's an idea of nuclear family. That's what you'd call it, or whatever. That's a meme. That's an idea. That's a 20th century, like, it's post World War II and it's the 1950s and 60s. We have this idea, and we have the idea of a genre. A genre is a thing, and it emerges this way, and the media tells you it's a genre, and that's how you know. And so you've got these 20th century kind of, oh boy, that's swell. And you just work hard and you save and you buy the house. And then you have inflation since 1969. No one can buy houses. All of these things go crazy. So you've got these 20th century conditions. Now we have an untamed, unmanicured, undomesticated music culture landscape now. And so this is a problem you see. People are trying to take these 20th century ideas and apply them to the 21st century scenarios and conditions. That is something that a wise man named Rollo Tomasi, the Rational Male, he's an author, but he says this a lot about a lot of different areas. That another thing too is there is no pendulum. There is no like, oh well, we made money from the records, and people in music recognize this, but in lots of other parts of culture and society, people don't recognize it. Like, there's no like, oh, it's a pendulum and it went this way, and now it's went a little too, society went a little too far this way, but it's going to swing back. It's just like, no, 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 no. There's no like fulcrum. There's no point at the top here that like, oh, it swings back and forth. Society swings between two extremes. It's like, no, 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 no. Like, things are here and they move to different places and they only go in one place. Time just goes forward. There is no pendulum. There is no moving back and swinging back and forth. Politically, people talk like right and left, or they talk conservative and they go liberal, and they do all these things. But there is none. It's not like there's like, oh, so things must come back. It's like, no. Things logically get to a place because conditions get there, and that's where the incentives and dynamics are. That's just the way things are going. Like if you think like water going down, rain happens at the top of a mountain, and the water trickles down, and like it makes paths, but then one of the paths gets really big, and all the other ones flow into it, and you're just like, oh, well, at some point, the pendulum's going to swing back, and it's all going to be little individual things, streams, running down. It's like, no, all the streams can combine into one big stream. It's not going back. There's no going back. It's going forward. If the next thing is it just starts going straight through the hill, because I don't know why, for some reason it like piles up, or it goes hill and then it just starts digging down, and then I don't know what it does. Anyways, I'm not a streamologist. I don't study water. But things only go one way. So that's Rollo Tomasi. You got to say his name if you're going to quote him. But that's his idea. And so the last concept Rick gets to is the idea that we're in just an infinite galaxy of possibilities. We're in an infinite galaxy of possibilities. This is wrong. He then says, or this is right, but the leap he then makes is that we're just in an open space where anything can happen. You can probably look at what's going to happen. He says we're in the algorithm age. Discovery is personalized rather than collective. Discovery is personalized rather than collective. I don't know about you, but if you've ever been on Spotify and you've like looked at like, what's my algorithm say? It's not showing you anything. No. And if it is, like you go on the Spotify like rock playlist, I have a hard time finding stuff where I go, this rocks, I really like it. Most of it I go, okay. And then the recommended stuff is just like, hey, you know that band that like made good records like 10, 15 years ago? Let's see something new or a record that's not good by them. You want to hear a song off that? It's like, that's my personalized discovery? Bad. I was taking guitar lessons like 6 years ago. There was a man, Masayoshi Takanaka. Masayoshi Takanaka was my little private little thing that I discovered from my guitar teacher. Now, everybody and their brother knows about Masayoshi Takanaka. I love city pop. Things culturally spread. Evolution is undefeated. Your evolutionary psychology is hardwired. People are driven by social proof. They're driven by trends, in-group, out-group, what's cool, what's happening, what's not happening. We're highly attuned to this because if we weren't highly attuned to it when we were living in tribes and roaming around and we saw, oh, these people don't like each other, and we were like, well, let's get them to work together, and then they kill each other. Now you're alone, and there's a whole tribe of people coming to kill you and take your stuff, and you're dead. So, but the person who knew how to do that and was like, no, these people don't like each other. Let's not have them work with each other. And then everything keeps going along. And when the tribe comes to kill you, you kill them because you didn't have any infighting, because you were, you know, adept to what are the trends, what's happening, who has buy-in, who is leading the situation and deciding what's happening, you know, who's cool, who's not cool. Those people over there that are trying to take our stuff, not cool. They're in the out group. We're in the in group. We're the cool girls. We're the mean girls. All of that's hardwired. Still goes for music and what people like. So though I might be a type of person who likes to like go explore stuff, even me, I got tired after like a year or two of like going on Spotify and clicking like fans also like, because you have to listen to like 80,000 songs and manually find a good one out of like all these records. It takes so long. The myth of like a personalized feed that's showing you things. No, 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 no. You're either finding stuff because a friend told you, because you heard about it, because you saw it on social media. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about that like that. All of TikTok is this idea that it's collective, not personalized discovery. It's collective discovery. There's a band called Mother Mother, and they have a song called Hayloft. It started with Hayloft, and it started with Hey. I just can't sing right now. Some people would say I can't sing ever, but they're wrong. I hope. Anyways, Mother Mother has a song called Hayloft. People start making TikToks with it. They go, this is a really good song. And people start listening to it. Now Mother Mother is like touring. And so it's like, it wasn't just that people like they found something that used to be like big. Mother Mother, I don't think had ever been as big as they were when TikTok found them, and then everyone collectively found them, and a whole swath of people were like, oh, we love Mother Mother. I'm a Mother Mother fan. To the point where people started listening to them so much. My father, who's almost 60, he was listening to like Destroy Boys and Mindless Self-Indulgence, like playlist, auto-generated, like fans also like, was getting Mother Mother songs going into his feed. Mother Mother was not getting thrown in on a Mindless Self-Indulgence on the radio 30 years ago, 20 years ago. That wasn't happening. But it also wasn't getting fed to him in a personalized fashion. It was because collectively people decided they liked it. That's the only way that an algorithm can really know if something's good or bad or not, right? Like, you could say, well, it's out of tune, it's in tune. You're like, a lot of the Red Hot Chili Pepper songs are like halfway between tunings. Lots of records are halfway between tunings because of the tape and things like that. So the idea that we're in the algorithm age, and that's defined by personalized discovery rather than collective, is not happening. It's still collective, largely. I wish personalized made sense, but the algorithms aren't giving you personalized things. They're giving you things based off of collectives. You're just seeing collective stuff, right? So personalized discovery, not happening. Now, well, I just want to look at this. You're not getting one-to-one palette that's like refined. You're not getting this, and you're getting collective. And so I think what really makes sense is that really instead of the algorithm age, we're in the siloed age where everyone's in their own grain silo, separated by a couple of meters. And maybe that's wrong. So maybe instead we're all in islands in the fog. You're on an island with a bunch of people. I'm on an island with a bunch of people. You're on an island with a bunch of people. We're all in the fog. And it's like super hard to see like more than a foot in front of us. And so every time like anyone swims off and explores like another part of the island, or like goes like, I'm going to go conquer the world and I'm going to go see what's out there. And they find another island. And if it's like no one's hanging out there right now, they're like, oh my God, look, I just discovered Prince. Oh my God, I just discovered Pink Floyd. I just discovered this. And it's like, no, just everyone's in their own bubble and in their own like world. They're in their own silo. They're on their own island, barely able to see. And they think they're discovering everything all the time. Anytime they see something, there's a little icon. Oh, never mind. That's my lamp. It's my lamp. Anyways, everyone thinks they're discovering everything. And so I think we're all bundles of bodies are siloed. Bundles of bodies are siloed on islands in the fog. They're explorers crashing into well-documented treasures of old, proclaiming revolutionary new discoveries. And so really, we are in an infinite galaxy of possibilities. The only thing is that the inhabitants are largely clumped together on a very tightly knit series of islands covered in tremendous fog, covered together in immense fog, tremendous and immense fog. And so everyone's just like bumping into stuff, but largely, like whatever progress we do make is just remixing things like you said, electronic and rock, right? Computer metal. These things like, and then Brat is just like, what if we just, like I don't even know. Charlie XX, good on you. But that's really what's happening is we're on islands in the fog. We're not in some algorithm age where everyone's like a person of one. It's like no, like we're all like still totally monkeys that like, and I mean monkey in the sense that we're hominids. You know, what I mean, like we evolved from tribal animalistic creatures. We still are animalistic creatures that are tribal. We still are tribal animalistic creatures at the end of the day. So we are still moving in these ways. Now, the last point is that the death of music genres. No, music genre is alive and so is fame. They just don't mean the same things they did. Say it again. The death of music genres? No, music genres are not dead and neither is fame. They just don't mean the same things you thought they did in the past. We are not in a post-genre world. We just have new genres that are developing at different times and revived genres that are getting revived in different times and in waves. Now I think we're in a pre-podcast world. I think that's true. I do think that's true. But let's get on this point of genre. Genres are not dead because hammers are not dead when screwdrivers get invented. Okay? Listen to that. Music genres are not dead because hammers don't become dead the instant that screwdrivers get invented. Now, you're just not going to use a hammer every time you would use a screwdriver. The same way, if people would use a genre to figure out, oh, do I want to listen to this music or describe, oh, I like this genre. Now they go, I like things that are like chill, or I like things that are upbeat. You're using mood, or you're saying, oh, I like stuff that like Bert Kreischer tells me to like, or I like stuff that I find from Rick Beato. You're finding things from personalities and people's influencer curation, as Rick Beato says, or mood-based curation. But just because these two tools, like a screwdriver and I don't know, like another screwdriver, insert better metaphor here. Anyways, just because you have a screwdriver and another screwdriver doesn't mean that this hammer isn't going to be useful. You're not going to try and hammer in nails with like the butt of a screwdriver, and then boom, it's glass and it broke, and now you're like, shoot, what do I do? How do I do? You're like, no, I'm going to grab the hammer and just hit it. Like if someone goes like, Connor, what kind of music do you like? I just go, I like rock. And then they go, oh, what do you mean by that? I go like punk, metal, alternative, indie rock, blues, whatever. But most of the time, I go, oh, like Nirvana, the White Stripes, the Strokes, Franz Ferdinand, Van Halen, Motley Crue, Rush, and I just start naming things. And so you would be like, yep, genre's dead. People are naming things. People use names to describe stuff, not the genre label. Genre's dead. You're like, no, it's just a different tool. These are all tools to communicate. And so Jesse Cannon, who talks about music marketing, he makes this point. He's like, genre is just a tool for the artist to communicate information in a quick and easy way to the fans. So if I go, hey, I identify with the label of doom metal because I like distortion, I like low tuned guitars with distortion and really cool riffs, and I like talking about like witches and dragons and fantasy and science fiction and concepts like that you might hear on the lyrics of this album here by Queens of the Stone Age, their first record, or by that album there, Witchfinder General's first record. Go to witchfindergeneral.net to read more about Witchfinder General. I own that website. Anyways, and I have a Witchfinder General cover coming soon to you. Anyways, genre is just a tool. And so if I go, oh, I'm like doom metal meets new wave, like let's say that's what I'm going to go with. I'm doom wave, or I'm new doom, or I'm doom rock, or I'm, you know what I mean? Or people go goth or goth rock. And these things, like it's just a tool for me to like give you something for you to identify with and like for other people to identify with. Like there's a band Ghost that people say is Scooby-Doo music. It's like, okay, people are going to use that because it kind of gets like the right idea. Like, okay, it's like, ooh, it's spooky, but it's also like, not really. It's tongue in cheek and it's upbeat and it's fun. And like, that's a way to communicate all of those other subsequent things and implications just in a couple words. Now, I think the connotation with Doom, I like Doctor Doom. If we can see, that's kind of blurry. That's kind of probably not that clear. But I have a Fantastic Four little thing from when I was a child. and there's a statue of Dr. Doom in the back. But you don't get MF Doom, you get Doom Metal. But like, there's interesting stuff with the word Doom, and so like maybe it makes sense to do that. But it's a tool, it's a choice, right? If lots of bands go, we're bringing back classic rock. You like classic rock? You got to like this Instagram reel and send it to people, and then like no one listens to their music, which is unfortunate because some of those bands are really, really good. I'm trying to think of one. Red Voodoo, they're very good. There's another one like Steel Crows, also very good. But they make these kind of and then Silver Bullet and The Reckless, which are both here in San Diego where I am. They're at SDSU a lot. Anyways, they're really good, but a lot of people make these videos where they're like, we're this genre, and this is why, dude. You like this, we're this. And it tells you, like, real quickly, like, if I'm a person who likes that and I'm looking for new music of that genre and I want it to come back, I should follow them. Now, what I think the problem is, and this is the real thing I want to end on, is this is the thing that we're missing. We're actually in a pre-podcast period. We are not in a post-genre period. We are not in an algorithm period. We are not in a siloed age. We kind of are in a siloed age, but not more than we really ever were. Just fame's become different because things have become wider rather than deeper, Anyways, but the whole point to go say is, you see my knees, my legs? Anyways, we're in a pre-podcast age. That's really what's happening. So you're looking at things and you're going like, okay, I think we're going to have in rock music like comedy had, stand-up comedy had with comedians, where the comedians realize, wait a minute, I could do the podcast. And then if my podcast starts getting 20,000 views an episode twice a week, those people will come to my shows, but also just the advertising income from the podcast is enough to do a full-time career and make as much or more than an engineer. But I'm only working like a couple hours a week just doing the podcast twice a week. So that gives me all of this time to go do the art, which is, like the cultural thing, right? Go and do the art. And then once one of us has an audience of 20,000 people, or 3 or 4 different comedians do in our own little silos, we start collaborating with each other. Now we all get to like more followers and like our silos kind of blend together. And so now you've got a community. You're starting to get the base of like a genre or a style. You know what I mean? And then, someone else new is coming up. They're only like a year into it, but they're really good. Let me get them on my podcast a couple times per year while they're doing their own podcast. Eventually, after a year or two of going on a bunch of bigger podcasts, they now have a big audience and they can do the same thing. And so you can get this thing where everyone can keep going. And the people who originally got there and got to that level where they're making full-time doing it, they just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Why do you think Tom Segura plays stadiums? Why do you think Bert Kreischer plays stadiums? Why do you think Tony Hinchcliffe with Kill Tony is in stadiums? And like, you don't have to think these guys are the funniest comedians in the world. And I'd make the argument that just because someone's funnier or a better musician or writes better stuff doesn't mean they're going to be more successful. And just because someone is more successful, it also doesn't mean that they're not funnier, right? But the whole point is, I think we're going to get into that podcast age. And once comedians started doing that, so there's like no comedians like, oh yeah, I really want to go do a sitcom and like sign like a deal where you get all my money. It's like, no one's going to ever do that again, right? Because they can just hire with the extra money they have from their podcasts and from touring and playing stadiums. They can just hire someone to film their special and put it on Netflix and sell it to Netflix. Netflix will pay them a bunch of money. So the same thing will happen for bands, okay? Bands are going to start podcasting, individuals, frontmen, and they're going to start podcast. And here's the thing too, is the rockers who are going to go do good moving forward are not going to be the same people who would have been good rockers going in the past and would have been successful. The same way that the people who are comedians who did really well in the past were like people who could go on a sitcom and be really funny in that environment. They're not going to win the podcast environment, right? Like there's comedians who are funny on podcasts and entertaining, and then their stand-up isn't as good. I wouldn't go see them by, stand-up, but I'll listen to their podcast like once a week because they're funny in that format. And so likewise, there are people who are not going to survive, who would have survived in the label system of rock and go on media once or twice. And there's going to be people who are going to like really thrive in the new rock podcasting, kind of dimension as frontmen and other people in bands. And I think the real lethal combo is when you get a couple of these people who all have big audiences and followings, not just people like their real, hey, click and follow if you like classic rock, you're going to love us. It's like also I have a podcast. And so like you're getting these reels going viral. You're also having the podcast so people can engage with you. Then maybe let's say you make a YouTube video like talking about what Rick Beato said. And so now people are coming and they're looking and they're hearing what you have to say and they're actually engaging with these ideas and they can actually become a fan and you can impact culture that way. And that's sustainable. It doesn't go away, right? And so the people who are going to succeed in this podcast space, once one of us gets big and the other ones get big, we can take everyone up and then it just exponentially goes up forever. And so it's going to get to the point in rock music where rock stars are going to make so much money from their podcast and from playing shows and everything and playing stadiums. Here's what it is. The next rock band that gets into a stadium is going to be from a podcast. The next huge, multiple rock bands are going to see in stadiums long term. It's going to be because they had podcasts. That's going to be why they're there. And so once they do get there, what's going to start happening is they're going to pay for people to stream and film and to, do live records of all their concerts. And they're just going to put them out directly to the fans because that's just where the best distribution is. And so they're just going to do that and they're going to go straight to the people. And you already see this with like bands like Goose. You see nugs.net or whatever. But I've started checking out Nugs because my friend Maya, if you watched my podcast recently, she's a super diehard fan of this band Goose, who's kind of like a someone taking kind of taking some energy and taking inspiration from bands like the Grateful Dead and Fish, the jam band scene, and they're live streaming their stuff. There's a band Eggy, they're super awesome. Band called Disco. A lot of these bands have their concerts and things going straight onto these places. Now the thing that no one's doing yet is the podcast thing. And it's crazy. I'm like, how do we not realize it? But I'm straight up like the first rock podcaster I can see. The only other person I know is like Rick Beato. But Rick's an older fella. You know what I mean? Rick made a video about fluid intelligence versus crystallized intelligence, right? And so you look at that too, and to his own, to your own logic, or the logic of Rick Beato, you get this idea that like, okay, well, like, it's probably not going to be people in their 50s and 60s who are really like thriving, creating these thriving ecosystems of culture that are going forward. Now, Rick's doing a lot of great work. He's documenting these interviews with all these people, and that's great. But I don't think Rick thinks, okay, he's going to have like the next hot band, and that's what because I don't think he wants to, because like when you're in your 50s, it's kind of probably just not what you want to do, or your 60s, like it's probably not what you're looking to do, right? But if you're my age, you're 22, and you're like, bro, if this blows up, if this video goes viral, and like, I know like tomorrow, okay, I've got 100 million followers, and I can go sell out any arena playing tours, like I'm going to do that for like decades and get bigger and bigger and bigger, and we're going to make as many records as possible. I'm going to hit up Rick Beato. I'm going to be like, let's make these records, let's make it good. So I think that's inevitable though. Now, who's going to be the first to do it? I don't know. But I think we're going to get in the age of the podcast age of rock. That's going to be the podcast age of music in general. People say social media. It's like, no, long form podcast is going to be the thing that converts people. The TikToks don't work for music. They might work for comedy because you just need to see that someone's like funny enough in a spurt. But to get a fan, to get culture, to get some deeper, like I think comedy can be just kind of more pinpoint and short, and you get the whole thing. But with music, you need to kind of get a longer. There's a reason songs are like 3 minutes and 30 seconds, and because you need to actually get a full thought out, right? You just can't get a chorus or a verse, right? It's not going to have the same impact that a comedian does. So that's why I think music in particular needs these long form platforms, and it's hysterical that no one's like doing it. Right? Like, why don't the Black Keys have a podcast? They love comedy and they've gone on a bunch of comedy podcasts. Why don't they have a podcast? The Black Keys, everyone on Dan Auerbach's record label should be on his podcast nonstop, and they should just be having fun and doing stuff. And then like everyone on his label would like get way more like attention and notice. There'd be way more chances for people to fall in love with that. So I think it's inevitable because whoever's the first to do it, whoever's the first to blow up as a rock podcaster, and now their whole career goes really well, everyone's going to start the chase. The gold rush is going to happen. There only needs to be one, right? There only needs to be one Rogan of rock before everyone starts running. And then that's when it began, the age of the podcast rock, right? You've got comedy podcasters, you're going to have comedy rock stars, or rock star podcasters. That's going to be a whole age. It's going to be the whole next age. So I think now the most accurate way is to say we're in the transition. We're post-label and pre-podcast. That's it. We're post-label, pre-podcast. We're post-label pre-podcast. It's a double chocolate chunk chocolate chip cookie. We're double, make double. Anyways, guys, those are my main thoughts. Rick Beato, I love you. You're a handsome silver fox. But I think you're wrong on this. And this is why I really respect your opinions. And I do love to hear what you have to say. If you respond to this, that'd be amazing. Thank you. You don't even have to I don't even mean like make a video. It's like, oh my God, I got views. Now I'm like, oh, I could like be like, guys, Rick Beato, talk to me. But like, I just mean like, even if like you like commented or like, sent a message and was like, hey, I appreciate what you had to say. Or like, I don't know. Or just like, I hope that these ideas can be impactful. And yeah, and even if it just ends up being that like someone watches this in like 3 years once I'm like a famous rock star, and they just kind of go like, or more of a famous rock star, world famous rock star here. But I really hope you can get something out of this. So takeaways: Rick Beato is wrong, but mostly right. Genre is not dead. Genre is a tool, and fame is not dead. Fame is also a tool. It's a construct that's useful for saying things, but genre is really a tool that musicians can use. This is an idea from Jesse Cannon to talk to people and to transmute ideas. And we're not in a post-genre phase because genres are being mixed, and that's something that's just more eye-catching. It's always going to be more eye-catching when people combine things you haven't seen combined before. When there's two things you know and you combine them to something you haven't seen before, and someone does it well, that's always going to be more interesting. And just because people are paying attention to that rather than just listening to Alice in Chains on repeat, which they are doing as well, that doesn't mean genre is dead. That doesn't mean it makes sense to define everything as post-genre. That doesn't really make sense. Like post-punk, I think, is a stupid label because it's like, what are you talking about? Is punk just that time period, or is it like an approach to music? Is it an ethos, right? I would argue probably the latter. I wouldn't say, it's like just that one period. Like Britpop. I think the idea is catchy tunes by guitar rock bands. Implicitly, Britain's version of pop is more rock, pop/rock, but it's just with British, cultural themes and undertones and aesthetics and things. So the whole reason to go say this is that I don't think we're in a post-genre phase. I think new genres being created always happens. That's how you get genres. And I think that's always going to inherently be probably more interesting to most people most of the time. Next, we are in a influencer-driven, mood-based phase. I think that's true, but I don't think that means that genre isn't also used. And we have lots of different cultures happening simultaneously. We're all on these islands in the fog with these horses and our own little tracks. We're all siloed, but sometimes we mix together in weird ways. And that is the new normal. The 20th century ideals of fame and genre and how culture is going to work in the cultural landscape, where there's like these big omnipresent forces like tilling the soil and manicuring everything like a botanical garden. That's just not happening anymore. We're in 21st century conditions. Things have changed forever. The genie's not going back in the bottom. The pendulum's not swinging again. You can say thank you to Rollo Tomasi for that. There is no pendulum. The direction is forward. And then, yeah, we're not in the algorithm age. We're, arguably the siloed age isn't even a proper way to say it. We're in the pre-podcast age. And I think that's probably more the truth of it. Well, you could probably say we're in the short form age. We're in the fickle fan age. There really isn't. It's really hard to get like, strong fan base based off a couple of reels. Like, I'll tell you, I like the band Silver Bullet and I've gone to a bunch of their shows, but like based off of their follower count, they have a much bigger like audience in terms of like followers. But like followers doesn't necessarily mean like they're going to stream your music as much or that they're going to like listen to you in long form and actually care and be invested as you as people. That just means they have like enough mild interest, enough passive interest. You don't have as much active audience. Really, you'd call fans. You just have like viewers, casual viewers, when convenient, when the algorithm blesses you and shows you them to you, right? Like, so I don't think algorithm age is really the right way about it either, because ultimately we are dictated by our in-group, out-group, collective things, and our music discovery is collective. So just to end, in conclusion, we are in the pre-podcast age. Music genres are not dead. And that is what's next, because things only move forward. Rock is hopefully not, but if I didn't get in here, I'd be 12 years behind comedy on the same trajectory. But rock's going to go way higher because rock's better than comedy. I love comedy, but rock's better. I don't have the comedy show with Conor O'Farrell. I have the rock show with Conor O'Farrell. Anyways, I've been Conor O'Farrell, your host this evening. I hope you enjoyed this video. And please tell me what you had to think, like in the comments, like type now, even if you're just like, I disagree with you. And Alice in Chains is the best. They're good. I like them. They're on at the gym all the time. Don't lamb bones. Digga 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 ah digga 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 ah digga 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 ah oh yeah damn bones digga 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 down digga love it so alone down bones digga ah here comes the rooster yeah 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 he gonna die. Hey, hey. Wait, let me. Oh my God, my voice is like that. Hey, here comes the rooster. Yeah, he gonna die. Man, I'm really messing this up. Anyways, thanks, Jed. I hope you enjoy. Bye.